So we launched this campus, 5 years ago now? And before we were here at the high school, we were across town, around Liberty Bay, we were at the movie theater. And we launched at the movie theater over at the Paulsboro Regal 10, and then shortly after, we landed here. And shortly after we came to the high school, our family, we were driving over on that side of town, and we ended up driving past the movie theater, and our daughter Lily, who was almost 3 at that time, 2, she said, "Look, Daddy, church." Look, there's church, there's the church. And we said, "Well, sweetie, that is where we've met, but that's a movie theater." And it's kind of hard, for a little 3-year-old brain to explain, like, "Sweetie, you are the church." And she's like, "No, church smells like popcorn. It's over there. That's church. That's what church is." And it's funny, Wes kind of opens a lot of the books saying, if you handed someone a Bible and after they read it, you asked, "What's a church?" He says, what's the chances they would say it's a building, a business, or an institution? I'd say 0. Because if you read the story of Jesus and you see what Jesus did and how Jesus operated and functioned, and then what he basically then turned and sent out, you would say the church is people. It's just simply people. It's a people that are continuing to live life and do the things that Jesus did in this world to make it a better place. At New Life, we call that people becoming the church on the mission with Jesus to help heal the world. And that's really the crux of the book, and it's the heartbeat of New Life, is that we believe that the church, although is there business to be done that we have to be good stewards and be faithful with? Yes. Is there organization and institutional type of things that we need to do as a function of who we are? Absolutely. But without the people, it dies. Jesus looked at his disciples and his followers and he said, I kicked this thing off. You walked with me for 3 years. Now it's on you. And I don't know about you, but if I were standing there, I'd be like, I don't know if that's a good plan, Jesus. 3 years and you're out? 3 years and it's over? 3 years and it's done? And if you read the story of the early church, it's crazy that God's plan actually worked. That we're here today, 2017 in Paulsboro, Washington. And the church is continuing on. That's because the church is people. It's people, and it's the heartbeat of what God has. And really those 3 circles, we're going to talk about, okay, what is really people becoming the church all about? And it really comes down to 3 main things. And the first place that we start, it's the foundation of who we are. It's the most important thing, and it's not a thing, it's a who. What do you think goes in that very first circle? There we go, Jesus right there. Jesus goes in that very first circle. He is the center. Jesus is the leader of the church. If you're wondering who is like the pastor of the church, it's Jesus. Jesus is the pastor of New Life. And all the rest of us are just trying to follow in his footsteps and follow his ways. Jesus is the Son of God, fully human and fully God. The Gospel of John says that the Word became human and made his home among us. It says that Christ is the visible image of the invisible God. He existed before anything was created and is supreme over all creation. This is Jesus. The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word. Jesus said, if you see me, you've seen the Father. You look at Jesus and you see God. Jesus shows us who the Father is. He's fully human and fully God. But some people seem to be uncomfortable with that kind of concept. They want to kind of create Jesus on their own terms, where they would say something like, Jesus is divine, but he's not human. He can't relate to me. He might be this all-powerful thing, but he doesn't really know what we're walking through. But we can actually read the story of Jesus and realize Jesus has been through everything we've gone through. He's been tested, tempted, tried, abandoned. He's been let down. He's experienced the pain, the hardship, the brokenness of what this world has to offer us. Both fully God, but fully human. Others say, well, I could see that Jesus was human, but I don't know that I can't buy that he was fully God. Like, he was a good teacher, maybe a great prophet, but I'm not going to believe that he's the Son of God. But Jesus said himself, I am the way, the truth, and the life. You cannot even get to God except through me. I am the only way. And if he was just a super good teacher, then what is the point of the resurrection and the eyewitnesses? That changed everything. Fully human, fully divine. But we want to tend to have Jesus on our terms. But the fact is, he's Lord. And he is the center of all that we do. Jesus was sent by the Father. He was sent because of the brokenness and the darkness in this world. Jesus led the way. He was the first one. This is your second circle. He was sent on a mission. So many of us think that the mission is the church. The church was the first ones to take the first step into the mission, but it was actually Jesus. God sent Jesus on the mission to bring heaven to earth, to bring dead things to life, to make it look like heaven here amongst the creation. God sent Jesus on a mission of love. The Gospels say that God so loved the world that he gave his only son. He gave Jesus. And whoever believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. That God loves the world, all of humanity, so much that he sent Jesus on a mission to be sacrificed for us. It's so powerful. It's in 1 Peter it says that Christ suffered for our sins once for all time. See, some of you think every time you make a mistake, every time you don't do kind of what you were intended to do, you just throw Jesus back up on the cross and you nail him back up there. But that's not the story of the gospel. The gospel says he died once and for all time. He redeems all things. All things are made new. The gospel changes everything. Everywhere it goes, it happened once and for all time. What God did with Jesus on Easter, he does for you. He's doing for you. And you can grab a hold of that today. And it's if you believe that Jesus on Easter, if he was bruised, he was broken, he was crucified, killed, buried, and then he rose to new life on Easter. The Bible says if you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And that is why Jesus came. That is his mission. And last week across all of our campuses, we had 56 people declare that Jesus is Lord. That means we had 56 people baptized throughout all of our campuses of New Life. Isn't that amazing? Is that something to celebrate today? We can thank Jesus for what he's doing there. And here's a few of the baptisms we had last week. This is Jeremiah Pardick. Isn't that a great shot? A great smile there. You just see the pure joy on his face. Part of what he was so excited about is Jeremiah was like, I don't know why I waited so long to be baptized until it became clear, because his 10-year-old son Titus was baptized as well, and he got to be a part of that. And that's Jeremiah then after he got baptized, turning around and baptizing his son Titus. Patrick, I think, who's here, he's in the back. He was also baptized last week. He's at the Mission House. We're excited to celebrate that with you, buddy. So excited. This is one of my favorite photos from last week. This is my friend Tom. He's the lead at our North Mason campus in Belfair. And unknown to him, in the Easter gathering, his brother showed up unannounced. And at the end of baptism, I said, would anyone else like to just be spontaneous baptized? He looks in the back of the room. His similar red hair stands up in the back of the room, and it's his brother. They walk down, and Tom got to baptize his own brother on Easter, and Jesus started something in Tom, and it's happening throughout his family. And that's what Jesus came for, right there, that picture right there. If you wonder what the mission looks like, if you want to know why Jesus came, it's right there. That Jesus came so that light could be brought into the darkness, that hope could be brought to hopeless families, that healing could be brought to the broken. And it's interesting, Jesus said, he turns and he says to his disciples, he says, just as the Father sent me, so I am sending you. Jesus is like, I am the leader of the church. I'm the beginning of the church. Yes, God sent me on a mission, but just as the Father sent me, so I am sending you. You see, some of us think we're on an inferior mission. Like we're kind of on not even 2.0, it's like we're on beta. Like, okay, Jesus was the real mission and he gives it to us and we kind of do this lesser. He says the same mission that the Lord sent me on, I'm sending you on. It's the same thing. Now go and declare this to the world. Go and make disciples of all nations, making a difference. And that's why we have the church, the third circle. We have Jesus. Jesus led the way in the mission, and then Jesus sends out us. We are his church. And the church's plan is the mission. The church exists to carry out the mission of Jesus in the world today. You might say, I thought the church was there to care for one another. Absolutely, that's true, as a part of the mission of God. I thought the church existed to worship God. Yes, that's true too, but the church must be filled with the power and the presence of God. But it's more than just worshiping together, because one day we'll do that in heaven. What's the one thing that the church is called to do right here, right today, right now, that won't exist in heaven? It's the mission. Because once we get to heaven, the mission is complete. It is done. The one thing that the church needs to do right now, needs to be consumed with and passionate about, is the mission. Because once we get to heaven, then we're worshiping. Then we're loving on God. And the mission is what we are called to. Jesus declared this. He said, I will build my church and the powers of hell will not conquer it. Every morning, driving to that movie theater in my little Toyota truck, I would grab the steering wheel and I would say this first because I had no clue what I was doing. We're launching a what? We're starting a church. Okay, Jesus, you said this is your church and you would build it and even the powers of hell won't even prevail against it. I'm declaring that today because I'm clueless. You need to show up and build your church. This is your church and it's still his church. It will continue to be his church. When we're all long gone and moved on and we're somewhere in the ground somewhere, this church will continue on because it's Jesus' church. It's built on him and he will continue to lead it. So you look at those three circles and you think, those are great. Peter, is it good if I got like 2 out of 3? I mean, that would be a great batting average. If I'm batting like 600, that's like I'm breaking records. Like I'm great. 2 out of 3, how's that? Well, we really believe that at some point, the whole crux of the book and this message, at some point this world is going to need you at your full potential. In order for you to be at your full potential, I think you need all 3. You need all 3 combined to ignite something in your heart. But something happens though. I'll tell you why, if you're not fully convinced, I'll tell you what happens when you only have 2 out of 3. So let's say you have Jesus and the mission, but you don't have the church. You've got this little dark area here where those 2 overlap. Not all 3, just the 2. Where you have Jesus and the mission, but you don't have the church. You see, you're into Jesus, you're following him, I believe in Jesus, and I'm into doing good things around the world, but I don't know about the church. I don't know if the church is really doing what it's called to do. I've been burned by the church, I've been hurt by the church, I don't enjoy church, I think it's boring, I don't like it. So the only problem is at that point is you love Jesus and you love to do good things in the world, but at some point you'll become spiritually alone. You'll become a follower of Jesus that becomes alone. It says in Hebrews, let us not neglect our meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another. You see, some of you, you're like, that's me. When we keep asking to get into a group or to be in community or meet somebody, or we do that awkward 3-minute thing where the timer goes and it's just like, oh, I feel so alone. We feel that in our hearts because there's part of us that's like, okay, I want to just be on my own, but it kills me to be on my own because after a while when we feel alone, it's just me and Jesus. At some point, I believe if it's just you and Jesus, at some point it's just going to be you. Because at some point it's just like you and Jesus, that's not how God intended it. He said you need the church. If you are tired of being alone, if you are tired of feeling like, okay, I got this Jesus thing down, I'm doing all these good things in this world, but I have no community, I have no relationship. Chances are you're in that darker area in between Jesus and the mission. Some of you might say, what if I have church and the mission, but I don't have Jesus? What happens then? Okay, well, I'm in community. I'm kind of going through this whole thing that we got here. We're in a relationship. I'm doing some good things in the world, but I don't know, I don't have this thing, I don't have this thing that seems like something's missing. It's because if you don't have Jesus, you're going to lack the power that you need in order to do his mission, in order to fully help be a part of his community. Jesus said that I am the vine and you are the branches. Those who remain in me and I in them will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can only do a little bit. For apart from me, you can just there's some things you can do, but other things you can't. Apart from me, you can do what? Nothing. That's pretty bold. That's a pretty black and white statement. That people who say, I'm good with the church and the mission, but Jesus, I don't know, is he the only way? Apart from Jesus, you can do nothing. You will lose the power that you need in order to really help heal the world, in order to make a difference in our community. That power that you need is found in remaining in Jesus. It's found in abiding and being connected to him, the true vine. We are to be connected to be at our full potential. I've been guilty of this, working at ministry, doing good things in the world. How's your walk with Jesus? Don't talk to me about that right now. I'm just doing ministry, I'm doing good things in the world. And all of a sudden it's like, I'm so tired. Why am I not excited about this anymore? Why do I hate people? Because the Jesus circle is kind of like, whoops, I got stuck in that little spot between church and mission. And the problem is here that if you live there long enough, you'll experience burnout. Christ followers will be burnt out I don't have the power. I don't have the way to continue to sustain this. And it's in that remaining in him. You got to have all three to be at your full potential. You got to have all three of those. You got to have, you got to have the church, you got to have the mission, and you got to have Jesus. And if you've ever felt in your life, you're like, I feel alone, I feel burnt out. What about in the moment where I feel like I've got Jesus in the church, but I don't have any mission? And I've been there. I grew up in a church that many times struggled with that. Okay, I've got Jesus in the church, but we don't have any mission. It doesn't feel like we're doing anything in the world. It doesn't seem like, we're reading the gospel. Is it really being declared? Are we seeing people be baptized? Do I have any non-Christian friends? Any people who are far from Jesus that I'm working with? I've been there. I'm in ministry. I'm a pastor, and I've got no friends that don't know Jesus. We've all been there. And what happens is over time, we love to talk about God. We love to talk about what God is up to, but we miss seeing the transformation. We don't see the power of changed lives. And at some point, if you live there long enough, you will get spiritually bored. And you're going through the rhythm, going through the motions, you start getting stuck in a rut, and all of a sudden life becomes spiritually boring. And at all different times in my life, I've had one of these missing in my life. I've been in all of those areas. I've been in that area, the bored Christian. I've been in the burnt out Christian. I've been in the area where I feel alone. I've been in all three of those. Many of you can identify with that. Maybe some of you are in one of those today. But my prayer for you, not just in these 12 weeks, but in your journey with Christ, is that there would be something right in the middle, that small triangle, that would get lit up. That blue triangle will come alive like Iron Man. Just come alive in you. And you would live at your full potential. Fully remaining connected to who Jesus is. And your identity is found in him. Not what you do for him, but who you are in him. That you would embrace that Jesus led the way in the mission, and I'm going to follow him into being a part of healing this world. But I cannot do this alone. I'm going to do this in community, and I'm going to engage the body of Christ called the church. That's living at your full potential. That's the heartbeat of people becoming the church. It's kind of funny, we talked about, hey, is 2 out of 3, that's pretty good math. It's pretty good in baseball. And isn't just 1 + 1 + 1 doesn't equal 3? You would think that it's like, I want to get to 3, but there's something about it when you're fully remaining in Jesus, you're fully connected in the church, and the mission is alive in your heart and in your life. It's more like 1 + 1 + 1 = 9. I know like some of you math people are like, I'm not tracking with you. But there's something about the power of it when they all work together. There's an exponential kind of growth. We're not talking about addition anymore. There's a multiplication that happens in our life when we have all three, when we're deeply connected to Jesus, deeply connected to the church and living out the mission. And when that happens, I believe Christ followers begin to thrive. When you have all three, we begin to thrive together. And when you thrive, your relationship with Jesus thrives. The mission of Jesus thrives, and his church thrives as we all live in community together and we live at our full potential. I have a question for you this morning though. What's holding you back? What's in your way of living at your full potential, of having that middle triangle glowing, lit up, where you just feel like, man, deeply connected to Jesus, deeply connected to the church, and the mission is alive in my life? Is there something in your way? There's all kinds of stuff that can feel like it's in the way, where it's like, oh man, like I'm graduating from this season of education and I'm moving on to this season of education and I'm overwhelmed. I got laid off. I'm raising babies. We don't have any more kids in the house and I feel like I've lost my purpose. We're in retirement, and how did it get more chaotic? I didn't think that was supposed to be what happened. There's all kinds of phases of life where all of a sudden it can seem like there's things in our way from living at our full potential. A little over a year ago, Brandon, our lead on the Bainbridge Island campus, he came up with a really stupid idea, and he thought all of the leads should get together and run a race together called a Spartan race. Thank you. That's how I felt. A really bad idea. A Spartan race is basically where people show up to like a cow pasture and like pay money to go to boot camp. I don't know why this was a great idea, but we all did it. They pressured us into it, and I put money down, and I went and did a Spartan race. And little did I know, it's the 8-mile race with like 30 obstacles, and I was not in a good attitude leading up to the Spartan race. So we drive up to the piece of property, and you can see it's just like all these muscle-bound CrossFit people who are just like, ooh, all this kind of stuff, and they're freaking out. They're all excited. I'm walking up going, oh man, my back already hurts. We walk up to the registration table. They're like, we're so glad you're here, Spartan brother. And I'm like, whatever, my brother, and they're like, could you fill out this waiver? And it's like at the top, it's like, don't hold us liable for any injuries you might sustain or if death occurs. And you're like, what? I could die from this? Like, what? I'm paying money to go to boot camp and I could potentially die. This is awesome. So we all go, we get over it. Wes and I have the worst attitudes out of the bunch. And I could see why Wes would have a really bad attitude. Wes is like 6'6". He's a large human being. He weighs well over 2 bills just because he's so tall. And a lot of this stuff is built for like CrossFit people, which are about like that big. That's about the size of a CrossFitter right there. Fits right in there. They're built for like jumping over and like hanging off of stuff. And Wes is just kind of like, he's just like, he's a giant. And we're getting up to the front, and they're making us do all this, I'm a Spartan, all this stuff or whatever. And then the gun goes off, and we run, and the first obstacle we go through is like a moat that's like up to our chest. Immediately you're soaked. Immediately you're nice, and your shoes and your pristine socks it's done. Now it's just for 8 miles. Then you're in the mud, and people like the girls in front of me are like, ew, you kicked mud on my back. And I'm like, oh, sweetheart, we got 8 miles of this. Don't start complaining about mud now. After the moat, we get to the very first obstacle, and it's about a 15-foot A-frame wall. And we get up there, and Wes just stops in his tracks and looks at it, and one of our younger guys with us just like hops over it like a flying squirrel. Goes over. It's great, guys, come on over. And Wes is just looking at it, and he's just like, are you kidding me? So he takes the best running start as he can get, puts 1 foot on the wall and barely gets his fingertips on the top and just stops. And it's just like, and you could tell, that's all he's got for that obstacle. Now, if you don't complete an obstacle, on the other side, you've got 20 burpees you got to do after every uncompleted obstacle. So we're like, we can't start them off right now with like 20 burpees out the gate. And they told us, if you start as a team, you can finish as a team. So you can just get each other through the obstacles. And so I'm staring at it, and I realize Wes is like, is he going to move? And he does just the slightest turn of his head to be like, you guys got me back there? And so I was like, all right, here we go. And I put both hands on both cheeks, and I started pushing. And everyone else came around us, and we got Wes at the top of that wall, and he looks down and he goes, Blue, we're much closer now. Thank you so much for getting me up this wall. We had a bonding moment, and we have this kind of this kind of pact now that we're there. When 2 hands are on 2 cheeks, there's something about it, brotherhood. We became Spartans in that moment. And he gets to the top, and then we all continue on through the race. We all completed it, and for the next 2 weeks, we all regretted it. But at some point in our journey with Jesus, there can be something in our way that seems like, how am I going to get through this? And one of the hearts behind people becoming a church, one of those circles, it's the church circle. If we start this, we're going to finish this. And many of you are staring down some obstacles. Many of you have some moats in your way. You have some walls you've got to get over. And many times we pray, God, could you eliminate the obstacles? The only problem is, if you don't complete the obstacle, you got 20, there's consequences of trying to just like avoid the obstacles. And the point is, they're gonna be there. But as the church together, we're gonna start something, we're gonna finish it. And if an obstacle comes in your way, guess what? 2 hands, 2 cheeks, we're getting over it. We're moving, we're going. Our prayers aren't always, God, just keep us safe. God, take all the obstacles out of our way. God, make life easy. Instead, God goes, okay, you got an obstacle in the way? I got a gift for you. It's called the church. Why are you avoiding it? Why are you choosing to do the mission alone? Engage in the church. And over the next 12 weeks, I'm not going to give you the remedy on how to eliminate all of the obstacles in the journey of life. What I'm going to tell you is we're going to discover this together. People coming to church together, and we're going to start this thing together, and we're going to finish it together. And it's our prayer that every one of you is my heart. I was already praying for so many of your faces were in my mind this week, and I was like, I want them at their full potential. I want her at her full potential. I want him at his full potential. And this isn't some kind of like motivational speaker moment. This is the gospel, that we would be alive to who Jesus is, alive, that the gospel would, that triangle, that something would just come alive in you, would glow. You're at your full potential. Never closer to Jesus than you've ever been before. Never more connected to the church and the mission fully alive in your life and the gospel winning wherever it goes. I want you to flip over this piece of paper, the opposite side of the circles. And like I said, at the very least, I would love for you to just fill out your name and how long you've been at New Life. That way we can just get an idea of like, how long have people been here? It's just, I just really want to know so we can continue to provide ways for new people to get connected. But there's some places for you to fill out some stuff, some next steps, some things that we really want you to engage in. One of them is halfway down the sheet is a box and it just says group and a number sign. That's not hashtag, that's number. And in your list you have here today, I want you to really consider before leaving today to really look at this group list and write a number down. Our groups team will get you connected to that group. If it's as simple as just putting a number on that sheet of paper, and our groups team will get you connected to the group leaders and get you engaged in community. We got 10 groups, 10 people who come to the church groups. There's all kinds of other groups as well at New Life, but as we walk through this, there's 10 just here in the greater North Kitsap area. There's over 100 groups throughout all of our campuses of people who come in the church groups. And we would encourage you, before you leave today, write a number of a group down. Do not do this mission alone. Yeah, I got obstacles in my life. I know you do. They will continue to be there until we finish this great race of life. And we're going to start it together, and we're going to finish it together. But the important word in all of that is together. Stop trying to be a Spartan on your own. Follow Jesus in community. You were made for community. Write a number of a group there. There's also some next steps we'd like you to consider taking when it comes to serving. And I'm going to invite two of our team members here, Jeff and Sky, to come talk about two opportunities you have to serve. One is the easiest way, some of the easiest next steps you can take in serving. The other is our greatest need when it comes to serving. So as they come, would you welcome Jeff and Sky, two of our pastors here at New Life? Jeff, talk to us about some of the easiest next steps that people can take.
On Sundays, kind of the easy next step is with our serve teams, and they start at 7 in the morning on Sunday, and they end when we've loaded up the last trailer. And so somewhere in between there's opportunities to help with mobile church. There's opportunities to help with first impressions, kind of what we do in the lobby. There's opportunity, we do a little green room for the mission house and the other people that kind of come in and help with some of the mobile church activities. So there are some opportunities, kind of monthly, once a month opportunities to kind of help us set it up, help us kind of welcome people in the middle of it, and then help us tear it down at the end. And those are just great. There's some relationships to build, there's people to connect with, and I always laugh because I got in a little late last night, and so I was getting up this morning about 5:15. I can hear some noise in my house, and so I know somebody's up, and so I get my shower and get dressed, and I get out of my bedroom door, and there's my daughter all dressed, and she's like, "You ready to go?" It's like 5:30. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready." And so she had a cousin over, and I'm like, "Well, where's your cousin?" It's like, "Well, I got to wake her up still." So, 6:30, we're rolling out of the house, and here she comes in here, and she's got her friends that are part of the mobile team that she engages with. And, and it's just, I think a lot of times the serve teams, what's great about them is it's a place for families to get involved, and it's a place for, mom, dad, the kids, can be plugged in, and you can serve together as a family. And I think that's a fun way to serve, and it's definitely a great entry point of serving.
Absolutely. Yeah, so obviously kids has some wonderful needs and some opportunities for you guys to serve. So we got early childhood that meets down here, elementary here, and then on Wednesday nights we have youth. And so if there's an area there that you'd be excited to plug into, maybe it's greeting at one of the tables so parents feel like, wow, this is awesome. I love this place. These people are so friendly and helpful. Or maybe it's in a small group, leading a small group for elementary, or at youth being a small group leader or helping out in some way there. So we could definitely use your help and would be excited to have you on the team. So
that's awesome. We thank these two guys for all that they do. They're great pastors, great leaders at our church. So our greatest need right now in serving is in our kids area. We've had a lot of leadership transition recently, and Sky's rebuilding the team. And even if it were for an interim time where you said, I could go in there for a number of months and I could help, watch some children, lead a small group. Maybe some of you want to help in just checking people in and being a friendly face in the kids area. Would you write kids in that area where it says serve? I love the serving kids, and maybe even specifically what you like to do. I love working with the babies, or I like working with older kids and doing that type of thing. We'd love to get you connected there. Like Jeff said, a lot of the serve teams that happen here on Sunday are the easiest first place. If you feel like there's something that's disengaged in my life, I don't feel like I'm operating at my full potential, an easy next step is to help set something up or help tear it down or greet somebody at a door, welcome them, hand them something, help with the hospitality team, getting coffee ready or getting the green room set up. These are some simple next steps that you could take. And we just ask that you would consider one of those two areas. A third one would be in the area of groups. Right now, you see we have a list of 10 people, and even some of those group leaders, like, we'd love to co-lead with someone else, or we'd love to host but have someone else lead. And then maybe if you want to be a part of some kind of group leadership, we'd encourage you to write that as well. I'd love to help lead in groups. And that doesn't necessarily mean you would lead the content, but it could mean you'd help, your house would be host, or you could help with hospitality, or you could co-lead with another team member. So consider those three areas: in the area of groups, in the area of our serve teams every Sunday, and helping with our next wave with our students and with our kids. That's our greatest area of need right now. We just ask that you would prayerfully consider where God would maybe be speaking to you of how you can engage in the mission and helping move that forward. There are people that come here every week that have never been to New Life before, and many of them, so many people, even weekly, go, I haven't been to church in years, or I've never been here. I've never been to church before. That happens every Sunday. I don't know if you realize that every Sunday someone comes here. That's why we've wanted to create this a welcoming place where people can come and go, okay, I've never been to church before. Let me try it for the first time. And so the mission happens here every single weekend. We would ask you to prayerfully consider getting connected on a serve team, writing a number down and getting connected in a group. And if there's any next step that you just feel led to take, whether it's a step in following Jesus, maybe saying yes to him, maybe being baptized, maybe there's something that you just feel like you need to take a step of obedience, and you just would want us to be a part of that and walk with you in that. There's a box there for next steps. Anything we haven't mentioned today, please write that in there. Is there a place to serve? Is there a group you want to get in? And at the bottom of that sheet, we're just asking everyone, if you just want to be a part of these next 12 weeks, where you would just say, you know what? I'm in. I want to be a part of what God's doing here in the next 3 months, what God's doing here at New Life. And we would just ask you to make a simple commitment. One, invite people into your life. Some of you will have barbecues and you'll host movies in your backyard this summer. Invite someone into your life that needs to experience that. Many of you will make a commitment to be a part of the weekend gatherings here on a consistent basis. Invite people to come with you, to eat a meal with you down on Friday, to sit here and to celebrate with you on a Sunday. That you would invite people into your lives. That you would participate on the weekends faithfully and be a part of that. That you would also get into a group and be in community and walk through these 12 weeks. For some of you are like, I don't know, I've never done that before. It's just 12 weeks. At the end of 12 weeks, give you your money back. You can tell us we were wrong. Get in a group. And then finally, go grab a book and let's read through this together and discover what it might look like if we were all fully awake, fully alive, living out our full potential on the mission with Jesus together. And together we would discover what people becoming the church looks like. The band's going to come. We're going to close with a final song before we go tonight. But as the band gets just kind of ready here, I just ask you to take just a couple moments and just look at that back part of the sheet. Write your name, how long you've been at New Life, and then please consider some next steps that you would take. Prayerfully consider and ask God, how would you use me to be a part of what you're doing here? Just take the next couple of moments, write some things down, and we'll close with a final song here this morning.